This video is pretty special. This is something I've been putting off for, I would say, about 2 years or so now. And the reason for it is because it's a pretty intimidating task to do what we're gonna do here, which is, of course, try to modernize and redesign the Mercedes SLR McLaren. What I want to do is show you the concept that came out in 1999 and compare that to the production version, just to show you the changes that were made between the concept and the production. Some very interesting details there that I can't wait to show you. But before we do that, there's something that I want to talk about, and that is creativity. One of the main questions I get from my students in my design sketching courses, one of the main problems that they have is feeling creative and kind of switch on creativity whenever you need it. This is something that I've myself has been practicing a lot by making these YouTube videos for these two channels. Whenever I want to be creative, I want to be able to switch it on immediately. And to me, the answer to that is actually pretty simple. It's all about taking better breaks. And that could mean going for a workout, reading a book, or even playing a game. And speaking of playing games, I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. If you've ever heard of Raid Shadow Legends, you know that they have a lot of champions, over 600 now, and also, of course, a lot of bosses. You can check all of this out by clicking the link below to download the game. It's available on both mobile and PC, or scan the QR code right here on the screen. And one of the new ones is the Guardian of the Void Keep, Malik Kavar. He can be a little tricky to defeat and can nuke your whole team if you're not careful, and you need a clear defense and offense strategy to get it done. It's tricky, but it's not impossible. The reason I like Raid is I have a few friends working in the entertainment industry as concept artists and character designs and stuff like that, where they can be totally free to create whatever they want without the restrictions of engineers as us designers have to ball back and forth with. So it's always fun to see what they come up with in games like this. And I think Raid is a very aesthetically beautiful game and also very fun to play. It has the same kind of arcade feeling as the games I played when I was a kid. There's a lot happening in Raid this month. You have new champions and a brand new Guardian ring that's coming soon. At the start of December, Raid's releasing one of the biggest, most anticipated features ever. Now is the perfect time to get started in Raid. So hit the link in the description or scan the QR code right here. If you're a new player, you get the new hero Chonoru, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon a champion the moment you get in the game. And make sure you connect with me in the game under the name TheSketchMonkey. Keep in mind that you will find your rewards here in your inbox, but only for the next 30 days. So click the link in the description or scan the code right here on the screen to download Raid today for free. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video, and now the creative break is over. Let's get back to the redesign of the SLR. So I want to show you this, that on top here you have the beautiful concept of the SLR from 1999, and it was of course designed by Gordon Wagner, which is now the chief designer of Mercedes-Benz. And I want to show you some of his and others' beautiful sketches that led to this concept. You can clearly see that this was all handmade, made with a pen and paper, and that's how this concept came to life. You can also see that when you look at the styling and the lines and the proportions, the curvatures of the original concept from 1999, it's a very organic shape. I want to compare this to the production version because there is a lot going on here when we look at these two versions of the SLR. This, I think, I'm not sure, but I think this has a shorter wheelbase than the production version SLR. I'm not sure about that, but from all the angles that I'm going to show you, the front, the side, and the rear, you can see that it looks like it has a shorter wheelbase. It also looks like it has more of a dip in the front here. You can see that there is less details in the front comparing it to the production version, and the star here in the front, for example, now sits further back inside of this beautiful F1 style front end right here, which I absolutely love about the SLR. That's something that we're definitely going to have to keep when we redesign this SLR. You can also see that these wings here in the bottom, they now are further apart from each other, which you can see down here in the production version. You have more distance in between them right here, and also the opening in the bottom is wider as well, and this lower part of the front face sticks out further, so it's more of an underbite in the production version. I think that looks better than we have right here. It's more of a pointy design right here, and here it's more of a point and then straight down a 90-degree angle. On the production production version. Another detail is the details that they added onto this air intake on the side here. It got a lot more complex than just having two wings like this cutting the intake. Now we have a bunch of different panels on top or underneath these two wings as well, which creates a more interesting, I would say, air outlet and a more distinct air outlet, which is unique for the SLR. Another detail I want to point out is the side exhausts on the production version that is lacking on the concept, which is pretty interesting because that would be one of these things that I would think is more of a conceptual feature, specifically if you go back to 1990 and the early 2000s. They didn't add that on the concept, but that's something that they decided to add on the production version, which is very, very cool. Now I want to talk about the rear because this is, to me, the most interesting view here. The side view is also interesting, but the graphics in the rear here, I think it's such a massive improvement going from the concept to the production version right here, and that all has to do with line flow. So let's have a look at the lines here. We have this shoulder line going from the air outlet and then into right here. You can see that there is a little crease right here, but it doesn't really connect to anything in the window. And look at this line down here at the bottom. It's broken. It goes from this line up on top, and then you have another line in the bottom, which then goes into the rear fender or rear design in general, rear end. And then you have kind of a very sharp angle right here that doesn't feel very organic or very natural, this corner, before it goes back up into the diffuser, which has some cool LED in it, very late 90s there. And the overall design of the rear end has more of a slope here in the trunk area and a rounded curvature right here, and that is completely different from the production version. So let's have a look at how they solved these problems or these line flow issues here in the production version, which to me looks a lot better. So look at this. We have the first line that we talked about. This line going from the air outlet into the taillight now has a clear connection, which is right here where the taillight now has a completely different shape than it has on the concept up there. You can also see that the outline of the trunk now has more of a clear trunk lid right here sticking out and a more clear defined corner before it goes down here. So it's not as smooth, and I think this looks a lot better than the concept, specifically if you want to add beefiness and power to the rear end. And on top of that, last but not least, we still have a little bit of a broken line here in the front end of the lower part of the line right here, but it then continues, and this corner here that feels a little sharp to me in the concept is now very smooth. And this is one of the key lines that I remember first seeing on the SLR when it came out, was this beautiful line here, goes into the diffuser and creates a very natural connection from the side going into the rear end that we don't have right here up here on the concept. So to me, this is a very, very good transition going from concept, analyzing the concept. People loved the concept when it first came out. It wasn't even meant to go into production, this SLR, but the reception that they got from the audience was so positive that they decided to put the SLR into production, and then even went on to make a roadster and a speedster Sterling Moss version of this car. But I think this is a clear example of how you should use the concept and then refine it into the production version, and not the other way around, which we see so often on cars today or the past 10 years, when you have a very, very cool concept and then everything just gets lost when it goes into production. And this to me is the complete opposite of that. So looking at the side view of the concept here, this reminds me a lot of the previous generation SL. When you look at it from this side view right here, you have some airflow. This is probably in an air tunnel, checking out the air flow over this body. You can see here that we still have this shoulder line goes a little higher in the production version SLR, and the hood sticks out a lot longer here. So this distance from the front axle to the A-pillar seems to be a whole lot longer in the production version right here than it is on the concept, and that's what leads me to believe that the wheelbase of the production version here is pretty significantly longer than the concept version up there. And as I said, this is one of the coolest concept to productions I've ever seen. With that said, let's jump into the redesign here and let's talk about what the SLR is while we redesign this and modernize it into a modern version of itself. So the Mercedes SLR McLaren was sold from 2003 to 2009 as a collaboration, of course, between McLaren and Mercedes, because Mercedes at the time owned 40% of the McLaren Group. SLR is an abbreviation for Sport Light Racing, which is an homage to the Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR, which was of course a huge inspiration for Gordon Wagner here for the design of the new SLR. It was offered as a coupe, roadster, and even a speedster, as we talked about. However, the speedster was only offered in a very limited Sterling Moss model, which also saw a different design in terms of graphics, very different looking in the front and the rear. Here are some of the beautiful sketches by Korean designer Jung Il-hun. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. He was responsible for this redesign, and I remember these sketches from 2009 when I was in school studying industrial design in Sweden. Seeing these sketches was in my folder of inspirational marker sketches because I thought they were so beautiful. You can really see the strength in these sketches, and I loved the style of this designer as well. And I had a bunch of sketches like this in that folder, and these were some of the highlights in that folder. Only 75 examples of the Sterling Moss Speedster were made, and they were only offered to existing SLR owners. The Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren was in production for over 6 years, and in April of 2008, Mercedes announced that it would discontinue the SLR. The last of the coupés rolled off the production line at the end of 2009, and the roadster version was dropped in early 2010. Due to the automatic gearbox, front mid-engine arrangement, and its driving characteristics, some would classify the SLR McLaren as more of a GT car than a supercar, whose rivals would include cars such as the Aston Martin DBS and the Ferrari 599, for example. Nevertheless, the SLR was powered by a 626 horsepower, 575 pound-feet of torque supercharged 5.4 liter V8, which propelled the car from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3.4 seconds, which was definitely supercar territory of the time, and then on to a top speed of 208 miles per hour. Whether it's a GT car or a supercar is of course up for debate. However, it does have the numbers to back both up. When the SLR was first announced, Mercedes said the total production would be limited to 3,500 units, but at the end of production, only 2,157 cars were ever made. So talking about the redesign here, I of course want to have it be instantly identifiable as an SLR, even though it would be a modern version of it. I want to have the key graphics and the key proportions be the same. So the front F1 style nose with the star deeply embedded into it, that needs to stay. However, the lower part of the intakes and of course the headlights and the overall side intakes and the graphics on the side, those are details that needs to be addressed and needs to be updated in order for it to look like a modern Mercedes. And also the side mirrors, although I love the side mirrors of the original SLR with the two spokes holding together the oval, it's a very distinct design. But if we're gonna make it into a modern version of the SLR, I think we need to change the side mirrors as well. This was a very fun project to do, and something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I just didn't know, I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted to do with it or how I wanted to update this beautiful design. I love the original SLR. It's one of my favorite cars of all time, specifically in silver, in these silver photos when it's in this ice background. I remember those photos from the launch and how cool I thought the SLR was at the time. It looks just as cool today as it did when it first came out. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for Raid for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you in the next one.